Hello, everybody, and thanks to Rajiv and the Certora for inviting me. I see Certora as creating a context which is the most important for getting into this space and understanding the security aspect. Today, I have decided to focus on the security of Aave, which is one of the most interesting lending protocols. So about me, I'm academic in computer science in the area of formal method and static analysis. I work with many fantastic colleagues. I want to point it out specifically the work with Tom Reps, Reinhard Willem, and Susan Horvitz. These are academic colleagues that I collaborated with closely. We actually contributed significant techniques for analyzing programs, specifically dealing with procedures, handling procedure calls. This was already integrated into tools like the Microsoft device driver and others. I also want to point out the recent work of using securing consensus protocols. It's basically reasoning about design, the Aave system. I received numerous academic awards, including ACM Fellow for top 1% in computer science. Recently, I have transferred to doing things which are more pragmatic, and specifically, I focus on DeFi and smart contract. We founded 3 years ago. We founded a DeFi Security Summit with John Mitchell, Mudit Gupta, and Rajiv. Also, 6 years ago, together with Shelly Grossman, we started Certora, and Certora is securing many protocols, including the Aave, and it's building this unique technology called formal verification. So what is Certora? Our mission is to de-risk the smart contract, and we are developing accessible formal verification. This is a free tool that I use for this talk, and you can use. It's a tool that you can use before auditing or after auditing, or integrate into your CI to secure your code. We're also providing many other services, including auditing, design review, incident response, formal specification, and we actually develop also this language called CVL, Certora Verification Language. So it's like Solidity, but it has more things than Solidity for specification. You can reason about things which are more mathematical in nature. We are actually using the Certora verifier to secure many protocols. Some of them work on their own, some of them we help them, and these are some of them, and I want to point it out, Aave, which is actually the purpose of this talk, which is building one of the most secure lending protocols. Certora is a global team with more than 80 engineers, and third of them actually has PhD in formal method. We are actively looking for more people with background in security and formal methods. So what is the security property for DeFi? So DeFi by nature is a financial object, so we can think about it in a similar way that we think of traditional finance, that you cannot lose your money. So basically, even if everybody runs to the bank, your money is still secure. In the case of lending, it is slightly different, and this will be the focus of this talk. We are looking into some kind of the protocol, and there are the lenders and there are the borrowers. And the lender deposits the asset to the protocol, and the borrower assets against collateral. Over time, the lenders earn interest from the borrowers, increasing the debts. So this is going over time, and all of it is implemented in a smart contract, which is implementing the protocol. So an important concept is the borrower position, and the borrower has two assets. One is the shares, which is what is borrowed from the protocol, and the other one is the collateral. This is the asset deposit. And externally, each token has its market value, which is implemented via a price oracle. And the interesting notion from a correctness perspective is the loan to value. And what is it? It's we take the loan value, say in dollars or in a stable coin, and we divide it by the collateral value. And we want this number to be smaller than 1. This is the notion of a loan to value. So what is lending solvency? In the case of normal solvency, we say everybody can get the money. Here, we are taking a slight variant of it. We said everybody can get their money in some way if it is not borrowed, and the worth of the asset is greater than the worth of the liability, and the asset is the token in the contract, and the liability is outstanding borrowed tokens. And a lending protocol is solvent if its LTV is less than 1, usually strictly less than 1. So we can think of solvency also as a transition. So basically, the idea is that nobody can get anything to be wrong. So neither the borrower nor any actor can turn the position of the protocol from being healthy to unhealthy. So from being from LTV less than 1 to LTV greater than 1. And there are, of course, exceptions, which are things that we cannot control, which are the price change and also the interest accrual. So these are the things that it's not actually part of the code, it's part of the overall ecosystem. So how can a lending protocol be wrong? And it seems like from a DeFi perspective, the lending protocol is one of the most interesting and the most challenging protocol to secure. So these are several ways in which a lending protocol can get wrong. And actually all of them we have seen in the past. There may be others. So these are cases that the protocol can get insolvent. So the first one is this was early on. These are problems in the Oracle implementation. In the past, there were some cases that basically, while the value is inflated, the exploiter was able to borrow the money, and this changed and made the protocol insolvent. These are early on the UWELD and the Harvest. These are early cases of violating solvency. Fortunately, now actually it seems like it's not actually happening. The price cycle are much more stable. There are other issues which are happening. The first one is called the first depositor attack. The idea is that protocol, for example, like Aave V2, you basically can exploit it before you actually insert a new asset, before it's actually the first asset. And this way, you can make the protocol insolvent. This is a problem that Aave team is aware of, and they are avoiding it by properly managing the asset. But the problem is that folks of Aave, for example, Radiant Finance, they were not aware of it. And therefore, they forked the code, and after that, somebody was able to exploit this first deposit attack, and therefore, there was a 4.5 million which is lost. The third one, it's actually pretty tricky. It has to do with how liquid is the collateral. And this is very tricky because sometimes the value of one collateral depends on the value of another collateral. And this actually happens with the curve. So that's actually very, very tricky. And of course, Aave is aware of it. And the team is also managing the security in a way they are trying to avoid these kind of situations. So how is the overall Aave security going? So Aave, since the beginning, is actually cares very much about security, and they are using multiple providers for multiple things, and these are all complementary, giving the security. So the first level, the core level, is the development itself. The development is done by the Aave Labs, and basically the Aave Labs and BGD. These are two teams that are actually developing code, and they're developing code, and of course they are aware of it. They're using testing, they're using fuzzing, they're using formal verification, they're using everything to basically make the code secure. This is the core development, developing code in Solidity, sometimes with small external providers. And then the next level, this is auditing, formal verification. So Certora actually has been working closely both with the Aave Labs and the BGD to secure the code as early as we can. We sometimes can get up to 3 contracts per week, and we try to look at them both manually and using formal verification, which I will demonstrate later. So we are doing it, but we are not the only team who's working on it. Mixbyte is another auditors. There's sometimes independent auditors. There's community. So these are all looking into securing the code, sometimes simultaneously, sometimes one after another. And this is the first level of defense of this code, trying to make sure that the code is correct. After, of course, the developers themselves. Then comes risk manipulation providers. So there is a Chaos Lab and Ilama risk. These are actually checking another security aspect. How do you set the parameters in a way that the protocol remains solvent? This is a tricky part. Recently, Chaos Lab released a product for that. These are products that are securing the protocol. After that, you have also the issue of treasury management, and then we have token logic and carpatry. These are maintaining the security of the treasury. And finally, there is the business development by the ACR. So now I want to actually dive into formal verification, which is part of the things we do for Aave. I'll also explain later we are providing other services, but formal verification, this is our expertise, and this is what we are actually providing for Aave. So what is formal verification? You think about it as the fact that you have your program on one hand, but you also have the specification. You have a mathematical requirement of your code. And formal verification means that you check, you compare your to the mathematical specification. And the purpose is either finding bugs or actually proving that they are not there. So this is a bit different than auditor in the sense that auditor can find bugs, but they cannot prove that they are not there. Here you can either prove bugs or you can find that they are not there. So actually we learn a lot from working with Aave, and we learn from the Aave community, but we also learn from working with the Aave team. And one of the person that we work with is Ernesto. And actually when Ernesto looks into our service, he actually viewed that as some actually way to basically look at it more like in communication science. And here is what is called Johari window. So you look into the hackers on one hand, and you look into the protocol on the other hand. So these are things that are known to the others and known to you. This is actually where auditors, including us, are very useful. We are finding some blind spots. We are finding cases that even these great teams, they forget something, and that's of course very useful. The other thing that we are doing, this is actually the formal verification, sometimes we can write mathematical properties and prove them. So this means that in fact we're able to protect against certain unknown attacks. So these are things that we are not know what's the kind of attack, but we can guarantee that they will not happen because we prove these mathematical rules. So bottom line is formal verification increased trust in the code. And here I pointed out the recent tweet by Vitalik after the Telegram incident. The idea is that both open source and formal verification, they increase the trust in your code because they show if code is low, they show that this is in some sense the correct law because you have these properties on the code that you have mathematically proved. So where does formal verification fits into the development cycle? So formal verification starts by formal specification. This is the core aspect, and actually it's useful even if you are not doing formal verification. Just writing rules in English or in a mathematical language called TLA or in the CVL of Certora, whatever language you want to use, or even informally, you start by writing the properties. And you want to start as early as you can, and you want to check the design. You want to check it during testing with fuzzing. You want to check the spec itself, and we have a tool that I won't be able to cover called Gambit to check the spec, which is open source. And then you want to check that mathematically the code adheres to the specification. And finally, when you deploy the code, you want to show to the investor everything you have done, including the audit, including the testing, including the formal specification, including what you have been able to verify to increase the trust, your trust, and the trust of others in the code. So formal verification has rich history in computer science. dating back to Alan Turing, which is actually in the original paper, actually explaining why the machine cannot actually verify the program. And it's a very interesting article which actually already talked about formal verification in 1949. And then after that, from especially in the 70s, there were a lot of very good people. Almost all of them got the Turing Award, which is the most interesting award in computer science and more. And they laid the foundation for formal method, in particular Dijkstra, who's actually explaining the difference between testing and formal verification. People like Patrick Cousseau, which influenced my own research, Robert Floyd, who was actually doing something which has inspired tools like Certora. So this was very good. But then in 1979, this is some kind of a realization that happens to many academic fields, that people felt that this field is not really working because it's hard, because it's actually, there are a lot of hypes about it. And actually, people really got discouraged from formal verification at this point. But then, actually, where engineering comes into play, and this is actually where I started my career, a lot of people develop many, many techniques, including static analysis, SMT solver, a lot of techniques and algorithms were developed. And these together, now when they are formulated, they are able to use to prove in big companies like Amazon, but also to secure DeFi. This is actually a very nice quote by Bill Gates of formal method, which is actually based on the algorithm that Susan Horowitz and Tom Webs and myself developed. It's securing a device driver against attack. The idea is that Microsoft is consuming others by other vendors, and they want to make sure that this code is correct. So formal methods, like many other mature fields in computer science, it has some myth and has some reality, and I want to actually draw your attention. So formal method, like any other method, is not actually produce bulletproof. You can have bugs, either because you haven't verified the right thing, or because you haven't used the right spec, or there are many things. There are a lot of things that maybe even you want to check. For example, price manipulation attack is not completely obvious how you defend against it with formal methods. Another thing that happens, and this is in the crypto space, people were very enthusiastic about formal method because they thought that it reduced the need for auditing. We don't think so. Of course, you could use formal verification before auditing, but the idea is having somebody looking into your code with or without tool is always useful. Maybe another thing is formal verification is a one-time deal. We don't think so. Formal verification, because you want to actually start it as early as possible, and every time you change your code, you actually want to check it. And the last thing is that who can use formal verification? So especially a lot of people, sometimes competitors of Certora, are saying that you only need to hire them or to have a PhD. Formal verification need to be a commodity. Everybody could use formal verification. You need some level of enthusiasm. You need some kind of sort of thinking about code. For example, security researchers are could be very good in formal verification. We are seeing it with recent contents called Arena, Cantina. The people actually are writing very good rules to secure our client. It's a and we think that this will happen more and more in the future. So now I'm going to try to explain a little bit about what we do in formal verification in Aave. We have been working in Aave actually since V1, and we are working on every version and every change in the code. And what we are doing, we are manually reviewing the code, but we are also trying to write some rules to increase our confidence in the code. So let's go back to solvency. The worth of the asset is greater or equal to the worth of the liability, and the token in the contract is the lending tokens plus the collateral token, and the liability of the token is the token that you put. And remember, we said LTV is less than 1, or the asset plus liability is greater or equal to the tokens deposited by the lender. So let's take a very simple property, and here we wrote it with CVL, Nissan, our engineer, and it says that the amount of the protocol depth is less than or equal to its asset, where asset is the immediate asset and the borrowed asset. And you see this rule is explained in CVL. It's exactly like solidity. You see, you write a token, total supply is less or equal to the virtual balance plus the depth token total supply. So these are functions in the Aave v3, and virtual balance is actually the asset balance of the pool. And this solvency, we want to show that it's correct after every function, in particular after we pay. And the idea is we can, and in fact, in the Certora prover, you can actually pass over all function, and it's exactly like fuzzing, but it's exhaustive. We are not actually checking a particular state, we are checking all the states. And the idea, of course, under the hood, there is a mathematics. We are not actually enumerating all the states, that's impossible. So you see that here, this is verified on the running code. You see that, in fact, it takes 2 minutes. It's admittedly long, and actually it can take even longer, but it increases your code. You are willing to do 2 minutes before the code is deployed. What happens when you take an incorrect code? So this just, of course, not a real code by Aave. For the purpose of this talk, we actually created several bugs and want to see what is going on. So this is a very simple bug. It will be probably easy to catch by testing. The idea is you are not calling the API correctly. So you see that the argument are swapped. And you see that in 30 seconds, the tool finds the bug. And the tool actually can even give you what we call counter example to induction. It's essentially something that shows that you can go from a state which satisfies the property into a state which violates it. It's a bit different than thinking in terms of fuzzing on others, because you can think about it. And this one, you have to either correct the code or correct the rule. In this case, it means, of course, correcting the code. Here we inserted a slightly more tricky bug. The idea is that this is actually a code, of course, which is convoluted. You don't expect to write this code, but the idea is you write something which you are only, if it's the second deposit, you are sort of inserting a tricky bug. You see, this is also taking 4 minutes, but it's still able to detect the bug. So we can actually, the nice thing about it, that you have a guarantee that if it doesn't solve the problem, it is not there. So that's actually nice, and you do it. And of course, once you're using with tools like Certora Prover, you always have to, and it's a good idea for you to insert a bug, and you will see how this bug is detected. So we actually provide a lot of other services to the DAO beyond formal verification, and interested in actually providing more, and going forward we are actually providing more. So what do we do? The first thing that we do is write spec. Like you saw here, the CVL spec, but we are writing spec. We're writing spec for code anywhere, sort of going from the design to the code itself. We want to write requirements. We can use tools starting like TLA Plus, which is a tool developed for Lamport by Lamport to reason about design. Later, we can use CVL or even Solidity itself and write specs. The second one, which I demonstrated, is the formal verification. Is actually applying the techniques either to find bugs, to prevent bugs early, or check the code. And our technique, and maybe it's something to stress, it is not checking the source code, it is checking the executable code. So it protects you against bug in the compiler itself. And actually, we have identified bug in the Solidity compiler itself, which were actually acknowledged and fixed in a timely manner by the Solidity team. The thing that we did this year, which is not yet released, but we will release it very soon, is actually we have connected the prover with Foundry. The idea is Foundry is one of the most interesting tools for testing, and it allows you to, unlike Certora, you do not actually use your own language. You can use Solidity to write spec. So what we did, inspired by the Aave BGD, we actually connected their test with the prover. So the idea is you take the Solidity test, and from the Solidity test, you can actually check them, but the difference between our tool is that we check them exhaustively. So we are not checking them on a particular state, we are checking them on arbitrary state, and this increases your confidence in the code. You now know that the code is more secure. We're also providing manual auditing. Our team is reviewing the code and reading all the code and trying to understand all the best practice in the code. This year, we also added extra service. We are providing governance review. we are reviewing proposals and actually prevented already issues. This is a manual aspect, but following the BGD, we took their own open source, and now we're actually releasing more open source tools that will help us in the governance review. Going next year, we are actually building customized monitoring specifically for Aave. The idea is we'll build Go Ethereum client that actually check properties. And you can say, why are we doing it? Especially because we are doing formal verification. The idea is some properties cannot be formally verified, either because there is a undecidability issue, basically computer cannot prove everything, or things that we say like price manipulation, some things that depend on external resources that actually are not part of the code. So this is where we are actually using monitoring, and we are developing these customized monitoring, which we'll use to check the code in addition to formal verification. So the thing that we are doing to the DAO, and actually, of course, this is by nature something which is a bit confidential. Every time there is an incident reported by a bug bounty or others, and if the team decide to involve us, we can help them. And this is something we do and we love to do. We will use the prover or just our team. For example, sometimes something is reported, we can check it by our prover. And if we can be in certain cases confident that it's not a bug, so we can help. But we get these incidents, and of course, we always get them when we are not ready. And one thing which happened recently, we got an incident from Aave, and this is something that I could disclose because it's public, and actually there is a beautiful DSS lecture about it, and also on the Aave forum there is a very nice post by the BGD, and also there is a post by us, and I think also by the ZKC team. So I would like to tell you a little bit about it. So what happened? Essentially, the Aave team, they decided, the BGD team, they decided to deploy V3 on ZK, which makes sense because ZK is one of the leading protocols. And the team, even though the tooling is very basic, and our tool, by the way, at the moment we love to adapt it. We have adapted to other bytecode like the Solana bytecode, but we have not yet adapted to the ZK. So basically, they have a team try to deploy it, and they noticed something weird, and they contacted us. And this for us always happens in the middle of the night, but we are good with it. We are a security company. So we try to understand what is actually the issue, what's going on. Of course, we were very scared as a security company. We said we verified this code. But remember, we verified this code on the EVM. We are not actually verifying this code on the. So what happened? Apparently, there was an LLVM compiler issue. So LLVM is one of the most interesting compiler infrastructure, originally developed at the University of Urbana-Champaign, but adopted by many security companies that Apple is using it, and others. It's a very secure compiler, and it has actually a version for the ZK, but it has a bug in the optimizer. And this bug in the optimizer, it actually could affect and could make the protocol insolvent. It's kind of interesting. And you see there is this borrowing aspect. And now there is this thing, in fact, even though it was developed for 64-bit, it was used for 256. So what happened, there is this instruction role, which was not actually implemented correct due to optimization. So we recently hold this DeFi security summit about this, actually, Ernesto from BGD and John Thoman, who is our chief scientist. And the reaction is that some people will say you only use a formally verified code all the way. I think it's not possible because there are some things that you cannot formally verify. Even in Certora, there is, of course, a trusted code base, so not everything could be formally verified. There's always some kind of assumptions about it. You can think about it as Gödel incompleteness problem or other things. And the other version that people say in the internet, people say trust absolutely nothing. Also, it makes no sense. You want to trust things. So what we think, you will need to trust, but you need to verify. You need to use any tools that you have, fuzzing, testing, formal verification, check the spec like we have Gambit. And for us, for example, we could have identified this bug had we developed our tool to work on the ZK. So this is the moral is that use tools like formal verification and others, but have some level of paranoia. You have to check, in particular, have to check uh, 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 some kind of check your code and check your spec, and use tools like ours and Foundry and others to increase your confidence in it. So this is sort of what I wanted to talk. I want to actually end this lecture by sort of trying to think more in a broader level. So basically, what is actually security? And I know the domain of DeFi in the last few years actually has been way more secure with many, many providers, auditing, bug bounty, community auditing, incident response, monitoring. A lot of companies in this space are trying to get, and we are getting more and more actually newcomers from Web2 come with a lot of experience in this case. So I want to actually try to contribute sort of my own experience, and I'm not sure that what I'm saying here is so original, but still I want to actually sort of try to give you a focus of how I've used security and how is actually Aave is doing such a great job. And I'm not saying it's only Aave, but I think it's interesting that Aave is taking it. So there are kind of four principles, and you need them all together, and they actually all complement each other. They will not guarantee that your code is full or its absence of bug, but they will drastically increase your security. So the first thing, sometimes actually neglected by others, is shift left. Start thinking early and write white papers, design, scenarios, anything that you can write early before you write a single line of code, and definitely before you deploy. The earlier you think, even if you are a two-person team or you are a big team, you have to think about it. So that's the first thing, shift left security. The second thing, and that's actually, I think I started hinting about it, but it's actually where Aave is doing so great, is the security process itself. Whether it's the government, it's the deployment in the network, the bug bounty that actually incentivize people not to hack your code. Incident response, which is related to the bug bounty. Emergency multisig basically have some way to deal with the keys. And of course, this is something that happened recently in some protocol. You also have to have, it's a security, even though you want to have openness and transparency, but some things has to be restricted. So these are two things. From Certora, we are actually helping in the design. We're also helping in real-time monitoring and incident. The third thing that you will need to do, and I think this is a way that the Web3 community has now improved a lot, people understand the importance of artifacts. An artifact is a white paper, it's an audit report, it's test cases, it's formal specification. We have seen recently now, for example, the ZK specification released by the Ethereum community. So artifact is very good. The more of them and the more they're accessible, the better. And the last thing, this is actually where we focus most of our energy. This is the engineering. Build good tools. Build good tools. I think there are good tools in Web3, and more Web3 tools are coming. And I think the list that I have here is not complete, but I think it's interesting. So of course, fuzzing tools and Kidnap Foundry is great. Formal verification, tools like Halmos, Code, ours is important. We have some tools that give you formal verification, governance review, and actually we are releasing a tool that actually inspired by BGD and that we did for securing Aave. And governance review, it's something that you need more tools, open source tools, and parameter recommendation like the Chaos Lab, also dealing with price manipulation and others. So these are all tools. There are other tools. There are other tools that you can do pre-deployment, post-deployment. The more tools in this space, the better. So I'm coming to the end of the lecture. Thank you again, Rajiv, for inviting me. and good luck in securing this space. I want to acknowledge the Aave team, which is actually the Certora Aave team. So these are teams in Certora. Actually, not there are more people, but these are people who are contributing significantly to the security of Aave. So Nissan Levy is a formal verification wizard writing rules. Michael Morami is actually leading our account. He's actually from the beginning, sort of dealing with the communication with the Aave team, all the time available. Along that, he's a security researcher, which is manually reviewing the code. Asaf Hochstadt is actually security researcher who is actually doing the governance review. Also, Itai Haddad is a security researcher. Tomer Ganor is actually doing both security research and formal verification, helping with code. U.S. Sherman is actually helping with the DeFi aspect. And I already mentioned John, our chief security scientist, which is developing our prover, but is also helping with many things in the compiler. I also want to point out our collaboration here with many people in the Aave community, including the blockchain clubs, including the Aave labs, the BGD, State Lab, ACI, all the teams who are helping us here and helping Aave to secure the code, and we are looking forward to continue to secure this lovely protocol. So thank you, everybody. If you are listening to this talk remotely, you can easily get access to our tool. We have a Discord community. You can simply get free version of the tool and try it on code like Aave and others. Actually, on the Aave repository, there is also our CVS specification, so you can actually access it. We actually make the connection of the Aave BGD and everything available in the Aave repository and in any other places in order for you to access it. Thank you very much, Rajiv.